Ethan had always been a seeker of adventure, the type of person whose curiosity often led him beyond the beaten path. Growing up in a small town near the desert, he had spent countless nights sitting around campfires with friends, captivated by tales of the supernatural and strange occurrences that seemed to lurk just beyond the horizon. The stories of skinwalkers, the legendary shapeshifters of Native American lore, had become a particular obsession for him. He relished every chilling detail, imagining the dark figures flitting through the arid landscape under the moonlight. As he matured, Ethan's fascination with urban legends transformed into a deep thirst for experiences that would take him closer to the folklore that excited him so. With his camera in hand and an old camping backpack slung over his shoulder, he often embarked on solo trips into the desert, eager to document whatever mysteries he might unearth. He believed that every shadow held a story waiting to be told, and he was determined to be its chronicler. On one such nighttime excursion, Ethan parked his truck at a familiar overlook, a spot where the vast expanse of sand met an ink-black sky filled with shimmering stars. As he prepared his equipment, he caught sight of peculiar lights flickering on the horizon, a sequence of glowing orbs dancing playfully, beckoning him closer. Heart racing with adrenaline and excitement, he felt an irrepressible urge to follow them. His mind raced with possibilities. Were they will-o'-the-wisps leading him astray, or perhaps something more sinister? This was not the first time Ethan had followed unknown phenomena into the desert, but this felt different, a fateful pull that whispered promises of revelation mixed with danger. A voice nagged at the back of his mind, warning him about the local legends he'd heard, yet curiosity trumped caution as it always did. He turned off his flashlight and stepped cautiously into the dark, feeling an exhilarating thrill wash over him as each step drew him closer to the unknown. The desert night enveloped him, and with each stride forward, Ethan felt more alive than ever, oblivious to the shadows that quietly gathered around him. Little did he know that those lights were not just an illusion but an invitation into a world far beyond his comprehension, a world where legends walked among them. As Ethan stood at the overlook, the desert stretched endlessly before him, the moon casting a silver glow over the landscape. The stillness of the night was suddenly broken by an enchanting sight, a series of flickering lights dancing across the horizon. They glimmered like distant stars, yet their movement was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. They swayed and darted in erratic patterns, teasingly drawing his gaze closer. His heart raced as he squinted at the ethereal glow. The lights pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm, shimmering shades of blue and green that seemed to swirl together like smoke. It was as if the desert itself had come alive, beckoning him to uncover its secrets. Ethan had heard stories about strange phenomena in this area, tales of spirits, will-o'-the-wisps leading travelers astray, but this felt different. There was a magnetic pull to these lights that set his imagination ablaze. He took a step forward, entranced by their beauty and mystery. Each flicker echoed with possibilities. Were they merely reflections or something far more sinister? He recalled tales from locals who spoke in hushed tones about ancient rituals performed under the desert sky, where such lights were said to be manifestations of lost souls or entities watching from beyond. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind, but it quickly faded beneath layers of curiosity and excitement. Ethan grabbed his camera, its weight reassuring in his hands, ready to capture whatever lay ahead. As he prepared to move closer, he noticed that the lights seemed to respond to his presence. They brightened momentarily before fading out as if hiding from view. This interaction ignited a thrill within him, a sense that he might be on the cusp of a revelation that would transcend mere folklore. With each passing moment, the allure of those flickering lights intensified. They beckoned him deeper into the desert's embrace, illuminating paths shrouded in darkness and leading him toward the unknown. Stepping away from his familiar world felt exhilarating yet daunting. He couldn't shake the feeling that what awaited him was both extraordinary and perilous. Little did he know, with every step taken toward those lights, he edged closer to an encounter that would forever change his understanding of reality and perhaps even himself. Ethan stood at the edge of the desert, his heart racing as he battled a storm of conflicting emotions. The lights flickered enticingly, casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated his surroundings while simultaneously deepening the shadows around him. He recalled the warnings from the locals, stories filled with dread and caution about those who ventured too close to such phenomena. They spoke of disappearances, sinister forces, and ancient curses that roamed the desert at night. But now all those fears seemed distant, overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of wonder. He hesitated for a moment, glancing back at his truck parked safely on the overlook. The familiar comfort of civilization felt like a tether to reality, but in that moment it felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. Every fiber of his being urged him to step forward into the unknown. The allure of discovery was far stronger than his instinct for self-preservation. Was this what he had been seeking all along, the chance to encounter something extraordinary? Visions of legendary creatures danced in his mind, skinwalkers lurking in the shadows, their presence felt rather than seen. Ethan had spent countless nights dreaming about this kind of adventure, and now that it was within reach, he couldn't allow fear to dictate his actions. A deeper part of him craved connection with these tales. They were not just stories but echoes of a world that intertwined with reality in ways he longed to understand. Taking a deep breath, he made his decision. With determination coursing through him, Ethan switched off his flashlight and stepped away from the safety of the overlook. Each footfall stirred the sand beneath him as he moved closer to the pulsating lights that beckoned him forward. The cool night air wrapped around him like an embrace, invigorating yet eerie. As he walked further into the vast expanse, doubts began to creep back in. What if these lights were indeed something sinister? What awaited him on this path? Yet with each question came a thrill. Curiosity surged through him like wildfire, drowning out caution. The desert whispered secrets only few dared to uncover, and tonight Ethan would join their ranks, guided by flickering orbs that promised an experience beyond imagination and perhaps peril lurking just beyond sight. As Ethan ventured deeper into the desert, the allure of the flickering lights began to fade into the background, replaced by the harsh realities of the terrain around him. The sand shifted beneath his feet, each step requiring effort as he navigated the uneven ground, feeling an unnerving sense of isolation wash over him. The vastness of the desert stretched endlessly, enveloping him like a heavy blanket, amplifying every sound and stirring his unease. Bizarre noises surrounded him, breaking the stillness of the night. He could hear the distant howl of the wind as it whistled through the jagged rocks and shrubs, creating an eerie symphony that sent shivers down his spine. Occasionally, a rustle would catch his attention, a scurry of small creatures or perhaps something more sinister lurking just out of sight. His heart thumped loudly in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears as if warning him to turn back. But the lights beckoned him forward and he pressed on despite his growing apprehension. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silvery shadows that danced around him, further distorting his perception of distance and direction. He found himself glancing around nervously. Every shadow seemed alive with possibility, every shift in the wind an omen. Ethan fought against mounting anxiety as he considered how far he had wandered from any sense of safety. He was alone, completely alone, facing an expanse of desolation that felt both liberating and suffocating. As he walked, sand seeped into his shoes, a constant reminder of his discomfort, but even that physical annoyance paled in comparison to the mental turmoil brewing within him. Memories of local legends swirled in his mind, the stories of unfortunate souls who had ventured too deep into these sands only to vanish without a trace. Shaking off those thoughts proved difficult. He was now a part of that narrative, a character in a tale where danger lurked just behind every dune. Just then, he spotted a movement at the corner of his eye, a fleeting glimpse of something dark darting between two cacti. His pulse quickened. Was it just a trick of his imagination? Or had he stumbled upon something truly otherworldly? With trepidation bubbling inside him, Ethan hesitated for a moment before taking another step toward the lights ahead, determined to confront whatever awaited him in the darkness. As Ethan pressed onward, the flickering lights intensified, drawing him ever closer to their source. Suddenly, the ground beneath him began to tremble and an unsettling silence blanketed the desert. The vibrant colors of the lights morphed into a deep crimson hue, casting grotesque shadows across the sand. It was then, in that surreal moment, that he first glimpsed it, a figure emerging from the darkness, both mesmerizing and terrifying. The Skinwalker stepped into the glow of the lights, its form shifting fluidly between human and beast. One moment it appeared as a gaunt man with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks, dressed in tattered clothes that seemed to blend with the shadows. The next instant it transformed into a coyote-like creature with elongated limbs and matted fur, its jagged teeth glinting menacingly in the eerie luminescence. Ethan stood frozen, his breath hitching in his throat as he realized he was witnessing a creature of legend, one spoken of in hushed tones by elders who warned of its dark powers. The Skinwalker's presence was haunting. It radiated an ancient energy steeped in cultural significance. In Native American folklore, skinwalkers were believed to possess the ability to shape-shift into any animal they chose, often as part of dark rituals or revenge. They were thought to be witches who had broken sacred taboos and were cursed to roam the earth. With each passing second, Ethan felt the weight of those legends pressing upon him. He was standing before something that transcended human understanding. Despite his instinct to flee, a strange compulsion held him in place. The creature's eyes bore into his soul, revealing not just malice but also a deep-seated loneliness, a longing to be understood. Ethan could feel the air thicken with tension. It was as if the very essence of the desert was bending to accommodate this otherworldly being. Words escaped him as he struggled to comprehend the surreal encounter. The Skinwalker tilted its head slightly, a gesture that was almost curious rather than aggressive. Ethan felt a strange pull toward it, an urge to bridge the chasm between fear and fascination. Here was a living embodiment of stories he had chased throughout his life, wild tales now materialized before him in flesh and shadow. He stood on the precipice of lore and reality, aware that whatever happened next could redefine everything he thought he knew about legends and perhaps about himself. Ethan stood before the Skinwalker, a whirlwind of emotions churning within him. He could feel a palpable tension in the air, a silent standoff as they sized each other up. The creature's eyes glimmered with intelligence, and for a moment Ethan felt a flicker of understanding pass between them, a connection that transcended language and culture. He sensed that the Skinwalker was not merely a malevolent spirit intent on causing harm, but rather a complex being with motives that oscillated between darkness and a desperate yearning for communication. As the Skinwalker shifted forms from a gaunt figure to a sleek, shadowy creature, Ethan's heart raced with both fear and fascination. Was it to intimidate him, to assert dominance? Or was it seeking a way to express something deeper? The creature's movements were fluid, almost graceful, betraying a certain sadness hidden beneath its fierce exterior. Ethan's mind whirled with the stories he had heard. Skinwalkers were often portrayed as vengeful beings, cursed and roaming the earth in search of retribution for wrongs committed against them. But here was something different, something more nuanced. "Why do you show yourself to me?" Ethan dared to ask, his voice trembling slightly. To his surprise, the Skinwalker cocked its head, an almost human gesture of curiosity. It lingered in that form for a moment longer, as if processing his words. The desert around them held its breath, the usual sounds of wind and rustling ceased, leaving an almost sacred silence enveloping the pair. In that charged moment, Ethan felt drawn closer, compelled to bridge the gap between their worlds. The Skinwalker's intentions pulsed like a heartbeat between them, a blend of longing for connection and an instinctive urge to instill fear. Ethan felt the weight of its history pressing upon him, tales of loss and survival woven into its very being. He realized that this encounter was more than just folklore brought to life. It was an opportunity to understand a creature that had once seemed so distant and terrifying. Yet, as he stepped closer, a flicker of caution nagged at him. Could he trust this being? Was it truly reaching out for understanding, or merely playing a game of shadows? The conflicting motives left him dizzy, fear tugged at one end while an undeniable fascination pulled on the other. With every second that passed, Ethan stood on the precipice of a revelation that could redefine his understanding of these legends and perhaps unveil truths about himself. As Ethan stood transfixed, the Skinwalker began to shift again, this time settling into a more stable form. The tension in the air transformed into something more intimate, an invitation rather than an assertion of power. The creature's eyes softened, revealing a depth of sorrow that mirrored Ethan's own sense of loneliness. It was as if the Skinwalker recognized a kindred spirit in him, someone who too had wandered into the unknown seeking answers. With a voice that resonated like gravel rolling down a hill, the Skinwalker began to share its story. Tales spilled forth from its lips like ancient songs, stories of loss and betrayal, of being shunned by its own people after breaking sacred laws that had transformed it into this tormented creature. Ethan listened intently as the Skinwalker recounted how it once lived as a human, filled with love and hope, before tragedy forced it onto a path of darkness. The creature spoke of the burden it carried, each transformation weighed heavily on its soul, forcing it to roam the desert in search of redemption. Ethan felt an unexpected bond forming between them, forged through shared experiences of isolation and survival. As stories unfolded in the stillness of the desert night, he realized that the Skinwalker wasn't merely a figure of fear but a reflection of the struggles faced by many, those who feel alienated from society and bear the scars of their past. The haunting tales revealed themes of longing for connection despite the monstrous facade imposed by circumstance. "I never chose this path," the Skinwalker lamented, its voice tinged with both regret and anger. "But I am bound to it now, cursed to exist on the fringes of your world." Ethan's heart raced as he absorbed every word, understanding that this was not just folklore, it was a living narrative resonating through generations, a truth woven into the fabric of existence. In that moment, Ethan found himself recognizing parallels within his own life, the weight of expectations, the fear of judgment, and an insatiable thirst for belonging. He realized he had followed these lights not just to confront a legend but to uncover a shared humanity beneath their stories. As he exchanged glances with the Skinwalker, he knew they were both searching for understanding in a world often too quick to cast judgment and fear upon those who were different. This encounter had transcended mere curiosity. It had become a poignant exploration of life's complexities, a reminder that even in darkness, there exists an opportunity for connection and growth. As the revelation of the Skinwalker's plight settled in, Ethan felt the weight of decision resting heavily on his shoulders. The desert around them lay shrouded in silence, amplifying the pulse of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He stood at a precipice, torn between the instinctual urge to flee back to the safety of his truck and the compelling call to confront this enigmatic being standing before him. The Skinwalker, now appearing more vulnerable than ever, watched him intently. Its eyes, once fierce and wild, were filled with a quiet plea for understanding. In that moment, Ethan recalled the tales he had heard that a Skinwalker was not just a creature of fear but a soul trapped by circumstance, yearning for release and connection. Could he be the one to bridge the gap between their worlds? He glanced back towards where he had come from, where the echoes of civilization still rang faintly in his mind. A part of him screamed to run, to retreat to familiar comforts and safety, but another part felt ignited by something profound. Here was an opportunity to challenge everything he thought he knew about legends, fear, and what it meant to truly understand another being. The desert wind picked up slightly, swirling grains of sand around his feet and drawing his attention back to the Skinwalker. Despite its monstrous reputation, he felt a kinship with this creature. Both had been burdened by their identities and sought something more in an unforgiving world. The stories of loss they shared had intertwined their fates at this very moment. With a resolute breath, Ethan stepped closer, challenging himself to move beyond mere survival instincts. "I want to understand," he said slowly, voice firm yet gentle. "Help me see you, not as a monster, but as you truly are." The Skinwalker's expression shifted subtly, uncertainty replaced by cautious hope. In that instant, Ethan's fears began to ebb away. He stood ready to confront whatever came next, a chance not only to face the creature before him but also to confront his own fears and insecurities. As he closed the distance between them, he understood that this choice was not merely about escaping danger, but about embracing connection even with those considered other. It was either retreat to the safety of ignorance or dare to step into a realm infused with empathy and understanding. With each step forward, Ethan solidified his resolve. He wouldn't turn back. He would face the darkness together with the Skinwalker, learning alongside it instead of against it. As Ethan stood before the Skinwalker, the connection they forged began to shift the atmosphere around them. He had stepped into the realm of empathy, but now the moment of resolution loomed ahead. The desert night, once oppressive and isolating, felt alive with newfound energy, almost as if it was waiting with bated breath to see how this encounter would unfold. "I want to help you," Ethan declared, voice steady but filled with emotion. The Skinwalker seemed to absorb his words, its features softening for a brief moment. But uncertainty still lingered in the air, heavy and complex. Ethan's heart raced. He had hoped for a miraculous transformation, a cathartic release for both of them. Instead, he felt the weight of what was truly at stake. This creature before him was bound by circumstances beyond his comprehension. In that instant, the flickering lights that had drawn him to this place surged with intensity. Ethan glanced at them, the vibrant colors seeming to pulse like a heartbeat. It struck him then that these lights were not merely guiding him to the Skinwalker but also illuminating a path toward understanding his own fears and desires. Suddenly, an unexpected gust of wind swept through the desert, twisting sand and shadows around them. Ethan felt a surge of clarity amid the chaos. He realized that resolution did not mean erasing pain but embracing it. The Skinwalker's existence embodied both darkness and light, an intricate dance of survival against insurmountable odds. "I can't fix what happened to you," Ethan said gently, "but I can listen." He took a step closer to bridge the final gap between them. In that moment of vulnerability, Ethan felt his own fears begin to dissipate. It wasn't about finding a solution or crafting an escape plan, it was about standing together in their shared isolation. The Skinwalker tilted its head slightly as if recognizing the value in Ethan's offer. With sudden intensity, the creature shifted again, this time not into another form but rather into an embodiment of itself. The colors surrounding them flared brightly as tales of its past surged forth, a rush of images filling Ethan's mind. Memories of love, loss, fear, and resilience intertwining like threads in a tapestry. As those stories enveloped him, Ethan understood that he had not come seeking a way to escape but rather an opportunity for shared healing. Their connection deepened as they recognized each other's struggles. Neither had sought this pain willingly, yet both were here now in this sacred moment. With one last glance at the mesmerizing lights flickering in the distance and a resolve that anchored him firmly in place, Ethan embraced this unexpected resolution. Not an escape from danger, but a profound partnership with the Skinwalker as they both sought redemption amid shadows cast by their pasts. He had arrived seeking answers and left having forged an unbreakable bond between two misunderstood souls navigating their own wildernesses. As dawn broke over the desert, Ethan stood at the overlook, the vast expanse stretching before him bathed in golden light. The flickering lights that had once drawn him into the night now felt like a distant memory, and he couldn't help but reflect on the profound transformation he had undergone during his encounter with the Skinwalker. The shadows that had once seemed so ominous now appeared softer, more nuanced, illuminated by the warmth of the rising sun. He took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp morning air filled with the scent of sagebrush and earth. The weight of his experience pressed upon him, yet it felt less burdensome than it had before. He had ventured into the desert seeking thrills and legends, but what he found was an unexpected intimacy with a being that embodied both fear and vulnerability. The Skinwalker's tales of loss and longing resonated deeply within him, challenging his understanding of folklore and humanity. Ethan realized that the stories he had once dismissed as mere myths were woven with threads of truth, stories that spoke not just of monsters but of the human condition itself. The Skinwalker had offered him a glimpse into a world where pain and resilience coexisted, where understanding transcended fear. He felt a sense of responsibility to share this newfound wisdom with others, transforming his initial curiosity into a quest for empathy. As he drove back toward civilization, he passed familiar landmarks, the cacti, the rocky outcrops, the distant silhouettes of mountains, yet everything looked different now. Each feature of the landscape held secrets and stories waiting to be uncovered. He understood that while he had escaped physical danger, the true mystery of the desert lay in its ability to challenge perceptions and provoke deeper questions about existence. Ethan knew he would carry the memory of his encounter with him forever. It was not only a tale to be recounted around campfires, it was a reminder that every legend holds a kernel of truth and that even those deemed monstrous have stories worth hearing. The desert night had revealed layers of complexity within himself and in others, fostering a profound respect for all beings navigating their own struggles. With a renewed sense of purpose, he resolved to approach life with open eyes and an open heart. The mysteries of the desert were far from resolved. They beckoned him to return, not just for answers but for connections waiting to be forged in the shadows. As Ethan merged onto the main road, he carried with him a blend of adventure and introspection, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead in his journey through life.